When you think of a multi-billion-dollar business, what comes to mind? Is it a corporate boardroom with executives in expensive suits? Or maybe it's a blue-chip company with many decades of trusted products and a squeaky clean image? Well, if Twitter were a person, it would be only 17 years old, and it would be somewhere between a mischievous rich kid who can't stay out of the principal's office and a juvenile delinquent. With accusations of censorship, election interference, hate speech, misinformation, data breaches, and banning users, Twitter has had an eventful existence. Twitter started innocently enough. While working for a podcasting company called Odeo, in 2006, NYU student Jack Dorsey came up with an idea for an online communication network that was kinda like texting, but allowed users to share short messages with their friends or a work group. In the beginning, messages were limited to 140 characters. Dorsey and his co-founders named the platform TWTTR, and they used it among their co-workers at Odeo. Dorsey published the first Twitter message on March 21, 2006, which read, "Just setting up my TWTTR." Twitter entered the public domain on July of 2006 and had modest use, with about 20,000 tweets per day. Twitter's popularity received a boost from the South by Southwest Interactive Conference in 2007 and grew to 60,000 tweets per day. By 2008, Twitter was growing in the world of social media with 300,000 tweets per day. Then, Twitter skyrocketed to 50 million tweets per day by 2010, becoming a major social media platform. The users were no longer regular people sending messages to friends or discussing the latest trends. Businesses started using Twitter as a form of advertising and liked the benefits from direct communication with their customers. The use of Twitter spikes during major events. For example, a record of most tweets per second was set when Japan defeated Denmark in the 2010 FIFA World Cup. Moments after the soccer game, Twitter had 3,283 tweets per second. When singer Michael Jackson died on June 25, 2009, Twitter servers crashed after users tweeted their status with the words Michael Jackson at a rate of 100,000 tweets per hour. Twitter also serves as a real-time viewpoint for natural disasters such as hurricanes, wildfires, and earthquakes. This allows people outside the affected areas to understand what's happening, check on friends and family in the affected area, and prepare humanitarian assistance. Then, the hashtag was born. The number sign was appropriated and repurposed by Twitter, and its popularity exploded. Hashtags were used by news, entertainment, and businesses to focus attention on products, people, and even outlandish behavior, such as hashtag put your pants back on and hashtag you can't pee there. Around this time, notable people and businesses started to be known by their Twitter handles. Twitter became part of the culture. It was not only used by millions of people, but also by athletes, entertainers, politicians, business executives, and religious leaders. It introduced new words into our language. How many times have we already used the words tweets and tweeted in this video? Those words didn't exist before Twitter. Now they are common. Twitter is one of the most popular social media platforms and is the 5th most visited website in the world. Every day there are approximately 500 million tweets posted. As a business tool, Twitter allows interactions with customers, helps businesses of all sizes keep up with the latest trends, and promote content. Elon Musk started purchasing Twitter stock in January of 2022, and by April he was the largest shareholder, owning 9% of Twitter stock. After declining an invitation to join the board of Twitter, he made a surprise offer to buy Twitter in April, with the final purchase price of $44 billion. Musk wanted to create new features too, such as making the algorithms open source, eliminating spam bot accounts, and promoting free speech. But this was the beginning of a rocky start for Elon and Twitter. In July, Musk announced he would terminate the deal, saying that Twitter had breached their agreement by not controlling spam bot accounts. The company filed a lawsuit against Musk in the Delaware Court of Chancery, and a trial date was scheduled for October 17th. A few weeks before the trial started, Musk changed his mind and decided to complete the deal after all. On October 27, Musk became Twitter's new owner and CEO. He then took Twitter private and reorganized under a new parent company named X Corp. Musk wasted no time firing several top executives, including the previous CEO. Since the buyout, several companies such as Apple, Paramount, Disney, and IBM have suspended their advertising on the platform. Understanding that he was becoming controversial, Elon Musk tweeted a poll asking if he should remain CEO of Twitter, and promised to submit and comply with the results of the poll. The poll asked him to step down with 57.5% of the respondents. On December 20, 2022, Musk announced he would step down as CEO after a replacement had been found, but he would still lead the software and servers teams. Since buying Twitter, Elon Musk changed the name from Twitter to X, and the bird logo was retired. Rebranding Twitter was described as unusual because Twitter's brand was already strong globally, with words like tweet becoming part of common language. Most companies would sell their soul to be recognized that way. The rebranding has also been criticized because to trademark the X name and logo is difficult. There are almost 900 companies in the US that own an X trademark, including an existing social media-related logo owned by Meta Platforms, which is Facebook's parent company. Since purchasing Twitter, the social media giant has also been criticized for increasing the spread of disinformation, hate speech, anti-Semitism, homophobia, and transphobia. But many people praised Elon Musk for defending the freedom of speech. Elon Musk bought Twitter after Twitter was accused of censoring users and news stories for political gain. Elon Musk wants Twitter, now X, to be a place where people can freely speak their minds, share ideas, and discuss any topic, no matter how controversial. In October of 2023, Twitter was valued at $19 billion, 55% less than the purchase price of $44 billion just 1 year earlier. But the financial news got even worse. Fidelity estimated the value to be down 65% from the purchase price. Then, in December of 2023, Fidelity's estimated value was even lower, 71.5% under the purchase price. In October 2017, Twitter banned 2 Russian media outlets, RT and Sputnik, from advertising. U.S. national intelligence reports concluded that both Sputnik and RT were used by Russia to interfere in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Maria Zakharova of the Russian Foreign Ministry said the ban was a gross violation of free speech. But in hindsight, both the Mueller investigation and the Durham investigation concluded that while everything wasn't above board, there was no evidence directly linking Donald Trump or his campaign to the Russian government. Also, there was no evidence that Russia had interfered in the 2016 presidential election between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. The Mueller investigation alone took almost 3 years and cost American taxpayers $32 million. So had Twitter overreacted to accusations of Russian interference in the election? 2 years later, in October 2019, Twitter announced it would stop running political ads because of the many controversial claims made in political ads. Jack Dorsey clarified that internet advertising had great power and was extremely effective for commercial advertisers, but that the same advertising power brings significant risks to politics, where crucial decisions impact millions of lives. The company reversed the ban in August 2023 and published criteria regarding political advertising which do not allow the promotion of false or misleading content, and requiring advertisers to comply with campaign laws. In April 2022, Twitter announced a ban on misleading advertisements that go against the scientific consensus on climate change. Without giving full guidelines, it stated that the decisions would be made with the help of authoritative sources, which included the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Both Twitter and X have been fined several times for not complying with laws and regulations. On May 25, 2022, Twitter was fined $150 million by the Federal Trade Commission and the U.S. Department of Justice for collecting users' contact details and using them for targeted advertising. In August 2023, Twitter was fined $350,000 for failing to meet two deadlines to comply with a U.S. Department of Justice search warrant for the account of former President Donald Trump. In October 2023, X was fined $610,500 by Australia's E-Safety Commission for failing to properly disclose information about how it polices child abuse content. In January 2016, Twitter was sued by the widow of an American man killed in a shooting attack that occurred in 2015 in Amman, Jordan. Twitter allowed the Islamic State of Iraq in the Levant, ISIL, or commonly known as ISIS, to continue using Twitter, including direct messages. The lawsuit claimed that this was the same as offering support to a terrorist organization, which is illegal under U.S. federal law. Twitter disputed the claim, saying that violent threats and promotion of terrorism deserve no place on Twitter, and like other social networks, our rules make that clear. The lawsuit was dismissed by the United States District Court of the Northern District of California, upholding the Section 230 safe harbor, which dictates that the operators of an interactive computer service are not liable for the content published by its users. Even though Twitter wasn't legally liable for the content posted, didn't they have the option or even the responsibility to ban these accounts, knowing they were used by terrorists? Later, Twitter did suspend several accounts from ISIS and other terror groups, but also found themselves playing a social media version of whack-a-mole. As one account was suspended, another with similar content and links would appear. But with lives at stake, most people would say that suspending these accounts are worth the effort. Back to Russia. Twitter suspended multiple parody accounts that satirized Russian politics in May 2016. This caused many people to question where Twitter stood on freedom of speech. After the suspensions became public, Twitter restored the accounts the next day without explaining why the accounts had been suspended. In August 2016, Twitter said that it had banned 235,000 accounts over the past 6 months, bringing the overall number of suspended accounts to 360,000 accounts that year. Twitter said the reason for the bans was because the accounts were promoting extremism, which is against their policy. On May 10, 2019, Twitter announced that they had suspended 166,000 accounts for promoting terrorism in 2018, stating there was a steady decrease in terrorist groups trying to use the platform. According to Vijaya Gad, legal policy and trust and safety lead at Twitter, there was a reduction of 19% terror-related tweets from the previous 6 months. Twitter suspended over 70,000 accounts of Donald Trump supporters in January 2021. Twitter claimed they contained harmful QAnon-associated content and were dedicated to the propagation of this conspiracy theory across the service. The rioters that broke into the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021 included QAnon followers. An Xbot is a computer program that can automatically post, repost, and follow other accounts. Twitter's open application programming interface and the availability of cloud servers make it possible for Xbots to exist on the site. Benign Xbots can generate creative content, but malicious bots can make unpopular people seem popular, push irrelevant products, and spread misinformation, spam, or slander. It is thought that bots can gain enough influence to sway elections, influence the stock market, and create public appeal for different issues. In 2013, Twitter said there were 20 million fake accounts on the site, representing less than 5% of active users. But a 2020 estimate concluded that 15% of all accounts, or around 48 million accounts, were bots. These were why Elon Musk wanted to back out of buying Twitter. Twitter has been used for social change by organizing protests around the world. Some of these include the 2009 Iranian Green Revolution, the 2010 Toronto G20 protests, the 2011 Egyptian Revolution, the 2011 United States Occupy movement, and the 2013 protest in Brazil. Twitter has also been used as a form of civil disobedience. In 2010, users expressed outrage over the Twitter joke trial by copying a controversial joke about bombing an airport and attaching the hashtag #IamSpartacus. a reference to the 1960 film Spartacus, in the spirit of solidarity for a man controversially prosecuted after posting a tweet joking about bombing an airport if they canceled his flight. Hashtag #IamSpartacus became the #1 trending topic on Twitter worldwide. In June of 2020, Twitter suspended over 7,000 accounts from Turkey because those accounts were fake profiles designed to support the Turkish president Recep Tayyip Erdogan and were managed by a central authority. Turkey's communication director said that the decision was illogical, biased, and politically motivated. The Turkish government blocked access to Twitter twice. Once after voice recordings appeared on Twitter in which Erdogan ordered his son to stash away millions of dollars, and another time for 12 hours after the earthquake of February 2023. President Erdogan blamed the people for a disinformation campaign because they criticized Turkey's government for not helping in relief of the earthquake. In May 2021, Twitter labeled a tweet from Sambit Patra, a spokesman of the India ruling party BJP, as manipulated media. This led Twitter's offices in the cities of Delhi and Gurgaon to be raided by the police. Twitter called the police visit a form of intimidation. Later, the Indian government released a statement claiming that Twitter has lost its liability protection concerning user-generated content because the Indian government said Twitter failed to comply with the new IT rules introduced in 2021. The Indian government said that Twitter should have appointed executives to manage user content on the platform. Twitter complied to India's government in August 2021 and appointed permanent executives and staff to provide for compliance to these new IT rules. In June of 2021, the Nigerian government banned Twitter for its citizens indefinitely. They claimed the reason was misinformation and fake news spread through it have had real-world violent consequences after the platform removed tweets made by the Nigerian president. Nigeria's ban was criticized by Amnesty International. An internal whistleblower uncovered more trouble at Twitter. In August of 2022, the former Information Security Director, Peter Zatko, claimed there were unreported data breaches, negligent security measures, and violations of U.S. securities regulations, including violating the terms of a settlement with the Federal Trade Commission in a case about safeguarding user data. Zatko had been fired by Twitter in January 2022. The report also claimed that the government of India forced Twitter to hire one of its agents so they could have access to user data. Twitter doesn't hesitate to take on foreign governments. It has banned accounts and removed tweets from governments all over the world. Twitter removed over 88,000 propaganda accounts linked to Saudi Arabia. Twitter also removed tweets from accounts associated with the Russian Internet Research Agency that allegedly tried to influence public opinion during the 2016 U.S. election. In June 2020, Twitter also removed 175,000 propaganda accounts that were spreading biased political narratives for the Chinese Communist Party, the United Russia Party, or Turkey's President Erdogan. Twitter also removed accounts linked to the governments of Armenia, Cuba, Egypt, Honduras, Indonesia, Iran, and Serbia. Twitter also suspended Pakistani accounts from government officials who posted tweets about the Kashmir conflict between India and Pakistan. In February 2021, Twitter removed accounts in India that criticized Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government for its conduct during Indian farmers' protests in 2020 to 2021. During the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic, numerous tweets reported false medical information related to COVID and the pandemic. Twitter announced a new policy in which they would label tweets containing misinformation, but they also blocked thousands of accounts in the name of guarding against misinformation. In April 2020, Twitter removed accounts which defended President Rodrigo Duterte's response to the spread of COVID-19 in the Philippines. But in November of 2022, Elon Musk restored 62,000 accounts and said that he is for free speech, so these accounts will no longer be banned. Elon Musk's focus on free speech brings a much different culture and focus than before he bought the company. In November 2020, the chief technology officer who became Twitter's CEO, Parag Agrawal, was asked by MIT Technology Review about balancing the protection of free speech as a core value and trying to combat misinformation. He said, "Our role is not to be bound by the First Amendment, but our role is to serve a healthy public conversation, focus less on thinking about free speech, but thinking about how the times have changed." Elon Musk was critical of Twitter's moderation of misinformation prior to his buying the company. After the transition, Musk eliminated the misinformation moderation team and stopped enforcing its policy on labeling tweets with misleading information about coronavirus and political topics. Even though Twitter had joined a voluntary program under the European Union's to fight disinformation in June 2022, Musk pulled the company out of the program in May 2023. Twitter's popularity grew during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 because millions of people stayed home and spent more time on social media. Twitter became a source of information and misinformation on COVID and the pandemic. Twitter started to flag tweets that were suspected to have misleading information and added links for fact-checking. In May of 2020, Twitter moderators marked 2 tweets from President Trump as potentially misleading and linked to a fact-check. Trump responded by signing an executive order to weaken Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which limits social media sites' liability for content moderation decisions. Twitter later banned Trump, claiming that he violated the glorification of violence policy. The ban was criticized from conservatives and European leaders who saw it as interfering with the freedom of speech. In July of 2023, the House Judiciary Committee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government interviewed Laura Demlau, the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force Section Chief. She testified that the same FBI agents who were warning social media companies about a potential Russian hack and leak operation before the 2020 election knew that the laptop belonging to Hunter Biden was genuine and not Russian disinformation. After the New York Post broke the story about the laptop and the Biden family influence peddling, the FBI refused to answer direct questions from social media companies about the laptop's authenticity, despite months of constant updates until that point. Simply put, after the FBI conditioned social media companies to believe that the laptop was fake and a product of a Russian government hack and dump operation, the FBI stopped sharing information. This allowed social media companies to conclude that the New York Post story was false and a product of Russian disinformation.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life.
The New York Post published its story on the morning of October 14th. That same day, FBI agents held a meeting with Twitter, and a Twitter employee asked the FBI about the authenticity of the laptop. According to Section Chief Demlau's testimony, an FBI analyst began to respond that the laptop was real when an FBI lawyer interrupted to say that the Bureau had no further comment. Just hours after the New York Post released their story, Twitter blocked the story from being shared. Twitter also froze the New York Post's Twitter account after the story was published. It wasn't reinstated until October 30th, 2020. Other social media outlets like Facebook reduced the story, which removed it from users' news feeds, but Facebook didn't block it. In the federal court case of Missouri versus Biden, testimony explained that the FBI's actions prevented millions of Americans from knowing about a significant issue in the 2020 presidential election, and Twitter was a willing accomplice. Millions of Americans get their news and knowledge of current events from social media. But because the FBI insisted that the Hunter Biden laptop story was false, most Americans did not hear about it until after the 2020 election. One Twitter executive said that Twitter was trying to avoid the mistakes of 2016, referring to the alleged Russian influence on the 2016 presidential election. In a congressional hearing, former Twitter executives, including Twitter's founder Jack Dorsey, admitted it was a mistake to block the Hunter Biden story prior to the 2020 election. However, the Twitter executives adamantly denied they were pressured by Democrats and law enforcement to suppress the story. Congressional Committee Chairman James Comer said the hearing is the first step in examining the coordination between the federal government and big tech to restrict protected speech and interfere in the democratic process. Months later, Jack Dorsey called the company's reaction to the New York Post article not great. He also tweeted that our actions on the @New York Post article was not great, and blocking URL sharing via tweet or DM with zero context as to why we're blocking, unacceptable. Did you know all of this about Twitter? Give us a thumbs up as we get into the Twitter files. In December 2022, Musk released the Twitter files to independent journalists, including Matt Taibbi, a former Rolling Stone journalist. The Twitter files were a peek into the inner circle of Twitter and the decisions they made over topics like Hunter Biden's laptop, shadow banning the accounts of conservative commentators, and banning Donald Trump, who was the president at the time. While some on the political right think the documents are evidence of Twitter's liberal bias and hostility to free speech, many on the political left described it as a reflection of how difficult it is for social media platforms to make tough decisions about content moderation. Taibbi showed that Twitter engaged with politicians over the site's content, as well as Twitter's efforts to suppress the story about President Biden's son. Taibbi's thread also showed screenshots of Biden's campaign team requesting that the company review specific tweets in 2020. The report says that these kind of requests from outside sources were common. Doing favors for celebrities and political organizations became routine as Twitter attempted to prevent misinformation and gain favor toward the rich and powerful. Taibbi said that both Republicans and Democrats had access to these tools, but explained that the system wasn't balanced and that there were more channels open to the left. Taibbi stated by 2020, requests from connected actors to delete tweets were routine. One executive would write to another, more to review from the Biden team. The reply would come back, handled. However, not all of the executives at Twitter were on board with suppressing the New York Post story and its Twitter account. The Twitter files showed that there was uncertainty among the Twitter's leadership about the laptop story. The leadership opted early on to suppress the story in its recommendation algorithms and then blocked links to it, saying that this was under the company's policy on hacked materials. But not everyone at Twitter agreed with the decision, with one executive writing that he was struggling to understand the policy basis for marking this as unsafe. One Twitter executive said, "We'll face hard questions on this if we don't have some kind of solid reasoning for marking this link unsafe." Taibbi claims that former head of Twitter's Trust and Safety Division, Yoel Roth, said in a post about the Hunter Biden laptop situation that Roth not only met weekly with the FBI and Department of Homeland Security, but also with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. This included a screenshot of a post which refers in a check-in to blocking the New York Post story, then we unblocked it, but said the opposite, then said we blocked it. The screenshot read, "Weekly sync with FBI DHS DNI regarding election security." The meeting happened about 15 minutes after the aforementioned hacked materials implosion. The government declined to share anything useful when asked. Monthly meeting with FBI. Why were social media executives checking in with the FBI, Homeland Security, and especially the Director of National Intelligence? James Baker was the FBI's general counsel for two of the FBI's biggest investigations in recent history: the Hillary Clinton investigation regarding classified information on a non-secure server, and a separate inquiry into coordination between Russia and Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Republicans criticized how the FBI handled both investigations. After the FBI, Baker worked as the Deputy General Counsel for Twitter under Jack Dorsey. Baker was scrutinized for the censorship involving the Hunter Biden laptop, but he denied any wrongdoing during his time at Twitter. Baker said that although he disagreed with the decision to block links to the New York Post story, he supported Twitter's decision to do it. "I believe that the public record reveals that my client acted in a manner that was fully consistent with the First Amendment," said Baker. Elon Musk announced on Twitter later that day, in light of concerns about Baker's possible role in suppression of information important to the public dialogue, he was exited from Twitter today. In regards to the Hunter Biden laptop, Taibbi said one Democratic congressman, California Representative Ro Khanna, wrote to Twitter's chief legal officer suggesting it was a bad look and a departure from First Amendment principles to suppress a news report containing details that affect a presidential candidate. Khanna mentioned in the email he was saying this even though he was a total Biden partisan. Tweeting at Elon Musk directly on December 7, 2022, former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey said that all the documents should be released publicly in any future disclosures. If the goal is transparency to build trust, why not just release everything without filter and let people judge for themselves, he tweeted, including all discussions around current and future actions. Make everything public now. #Twitter files. Mr. Dorsey has a valid point. Why not just release all of it to independent journalists and news outlets to let people decide for themselves? Elon Musk didn't help himself by promoting the release of the Twitter files. One of his messages read, "What really happened with the Hunter Biden story suppression by Twitter will be published on Twitter at 5 p.m. Eastern Time," followed by, "This will be awesome." And he even added a popcorn emoji. But when the files were released, the impact was minimal. It's like expecting to drive a Corvette only to be put into a Toyota Corolla. The Twitter accounts of several journalists were permanently suspended on December 15, 2022. The journalists had covered Twitter and had written articles about Musk's takeover. Several of the reporters had tweeted about the controversy over Musk's banning of Elon Jet and other accounts which track private jets. In response, Twitter head of trust and safety Ella Irwin said that we will suspend any accounts that violate our privacy policies and put other users at risk. The European Union Commissioner said that the EU Digital Services Act insists on media freedom. Jourova also said Elon Musk should be aware of that. There are red lines and sanctions soon. On December 17, 2022, several banned journalists' accounts were reinstated. So what is Twitter now, and is it good to use? Well, remember that it's not called Twitter anymore. It's known as X. But it seems we'll all be referring to it as X, formerly known as Twitter, for quite a while. The perception is that Elon Musk bought Twitter to defend the freedom of speech. Political conservatives see Twitter and Elon Musk as an ally, while under Jack Dorsey, it was seen as politically liberal. Many Republicans believe that social media companies, including Twitter, are biased against them. Meanwhile, the political left claims that there is more hate speech and misinformation on Twitter under Elon Musk. Do you find Twitter's content to be less credible and more hateful under Elon Musk? Or do some people just not want to hear opposing opinions? The freedom of speech seems to be a worthy cause, and to hear or even understand an opposing point of view is generally seen as healthy behavior. Societies benefit from respectful, tolerant dialogue between differing groups, whether it's Coke versus Pepsi, Star Wars versus Star Trek, or opposing political ideas. And as far as the rich, mischievous 17-year-old who's always in the principal's office, there's been some rough patches along the way, but he'll probably be just fine. If you enjoyed this video and want to dive deeper down the rabbit hole, check out one of these other videos.